Okay, this is Mike Merlin Means of Merlin Public Media. And tonight we have an episode that is going to be difficult to categorize. It's going to be a little arts talk. It's going to be a little music talk. It's going to be a little talking shit. It's a bit of everything. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to call it. I have a guest on here today that I've wanted to talk to for a considerable period of time. And now we're doing it. And let me throw this right out front. This fine gentleman has sent us a collection of his own music to use on our Solstice Day broadcast. And for that, we will be very grateful. So, why don't you introduce yourself to these good people?
Hi, my name's Robin Ap Clericus, based in Scotland, in the UK. That's about it, really.
You're underplaying yourself dramatically.
Yeah. Yes, I am. Yeah.
So, hey, brag a little for us. Tell us about you, really.
Right. Okay. I was, well, what am I, coming up to 60 next year. I was raised in the Welsh Marches, which is the border of Wales and England. So mainly Welsh. Got into sort of art at a very, very young age, and also sort of magical practices when I was in my teens. Went through various sort of initiations, got into music when I was, and learned about up to now, probably about 8 different instruments to play. Paint, oil paints, usually sort of mythology-based paintings, although I do animals and landscapes as well. What else? That's a sort of basic outline anyway. There's probably a lot more to it.
Well, yeah. I suspect there is, and there's so much I want to talk about. And I do want to thank you for sharing your music with us. That's going to make that day wonderful.
Yeah,
let's talk about you and music for right now.
Yeah, okay.
What's your instrument? You said about 8.
Right. Okay. I have various sort of things, simplest being sort of tin whistles and various flutes, recorders, mandolin, bit of guitar, drums, Irish boran. My creme de la creme probably is the hurdy-gurdy, which I play. That one was, or going back probably about 15 to 20 years ago now, I saw Ansel Pinto, a Spanish guy, playing one. And I thought, I've got to have one. Looked at the price of them, and they were sort of really mental. Thousands and thousands of pounds. Just for a bit. I mean, you were talking sort of £3,000 for just a playable one. Yeah. So I thought, I can't afford it. So I made my own.
What?
So, it took me a year. I worked out there's like over 100 moving parts on it, or movable parts, I should say. So I built it from scratch.
Oh my God!
And so, and it took me a year to do. So on the music tracks that you have that I sent you, you'll hear I play all the instruments on there. So there's sort of keyboards, and you can hear there's quite a bit of hurdy-gurdy that sort of creeps in there, along with the whistles and stuff. So basically, I mean, if people don't know what a hurdy-gurdy is, it's like a violin that had sex with a bagpipe.
Okay.
So basically, you've got a wheel, and the wheel acts like a bow, like a violin bow. Yeah. So the wheel, as you turn it, scrapes against the strings, and sort of bows them like you would like a a violin.
Okay.
So you've got two up to 3 or 4 melody strings. Mine's got 2, and there's other strings on the instrument that act as drones as well. And it's one of the earliest keyed instruments, and one of the earliest depictions of it is about 1,000 years ago in the Iberian Peninsula. So it's got hell of a history to it. It did fall out of popularity when the accordion came along, which sort of filled that sort of niche. Mm-hmm. But it's making quite a comeback now in some sort of areas. A lot of sort of Nordic sort of thrash metal use hurdy-gurdy. Hurdy-gurdy seem to be popular with them now, as well as bagpipes, so it's creeping into heavy metal and thrash metal.
That's one of my personal favorite genres, commonly referred to as symphonic metal also.
Yeah, yes,
and,
that's it, yeah.
I love that stuff, and they do, they'll bring out anything.
Yeah, that's it, yeah, and it's brilliant. This is an instrument that was probably died out. It was all over Europe, and it was like bagpipes as well. Everyone sort of associates bagpipes with either Ireland or Scotland, but there was bagpipes right across Europe. And
I did not know that.
In one form or another, you had French pastoral pipes, you've got Galician pipes, you've got Welsh pipes. There's all these different bagpipes right across Europe, and they sort of died out. Yeah, they sort of, because these other modern instruments took over, but now, because of the interest in sort of and putting them into sort of modern music, they're making hell of a comeback.
Yeah, I saw a video of some guy. He had flame jets attached to the end of his pipes, and I'm like, that's just kind of scary, man. But hey, it looks cool.
Have you seen the one? There's a guy on, I think you can find him on YouTube, and he wears a kilt. He wears a Darth Vader helmet. He's on a unicycle playing bagpipes with fire coming out the end of it.
No, but I'll be looking forward to that once we're done recording
go and
this.
Have a look. You'll find, that's absolutely brilliant. He's bagpipe playing, kilt wearing Darth Vader. Brilliant.
Man. So I'm assuming, have your own studio where you record?
I don't have I sort of just converted the one room into sort of recording studio, and sort of I was dangling sort of microphones from the plane and sort of padding out and sort of getting in cupboards with claws to sort of dampen off sounds and stuff like that. So everything was quite experimental. And the tracks I did for you with the were a project I did called the 8 Sabbaths for Witches. And sort of each one was done during that time of the festival. So I started at Samhain, and sort of so that track was made during that time of Samhain. Yeah. So I did a full year of the 8 festivals, going through that, the festival, and making the track as I did so.
Wow. So do you identify as a witch?
Yeah.
And are you, did you come into it on your own, or was there family heritage, or how did that all work for you?
Right. So, okay. History wise, it's just really started with an interest in mythology, and sort of the area where I brought up in Wales. Wales is steeped in mythology, and sort of that sort of. And so that was my initial start, and I was in the library sort of every Saturday morning. I was just, I was like a sponge for all this info, And then I sort of came across a couple of references to sort of magic. So my first actual experience was with a group called a couple of online sort of groups or correspondence courses, and one was the Servants of the Light, which was a sort of Western esoteric mystery school, and then there was the Green Circle, which was sort of pagan based. Yeah, and that was when I was sort of in my late teens, early 20s. And then I was about 23, and I was initiated Alexandrian Wiccan.
Okay.
And then by the time I was 30, I'd done my training and gone through my second and third degree Alexandrian Wiccan, and I was on the Sacred Isle in Ysmorn, Anglesey in Wales, and I was running a coven there. Did that for years, and then I sort of retired to Scotland really after that. So that was my sort of initial training. Why? So it came from a sort of very high magic ritual background, and then sort of a lot of people sort of get into paganism first, and then sort of into sort of more ritualized forms later. I did it in reverse for just how it was really.
I consider myself pagan, but I am I'm the epitome of eclectic. If I find something and it strikes me as important or sacred, then I bring it into my system. And this is how I've grown. I'm not so much of a ritualist. I mean, I celebrate the 4 cardinal points of the year. I don't do the other 4 Sabbats, but yeah, and we've had some on and off talks about this on Facebook, and you've been gracious enough to correct my post a couple of times when I did not do enough research. And, I told you then, and I'll tell you now, I appreciate that, because sometimes, and most of us do this, we see something and, wow, this is like really cool stuff, so I'm going to share it. And you're wrong.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the time, I mean, I was always taught by my high priestess. She said, always question everything. And I think it's a good thing to have. It's a good thing to have in the back of your head, to always question sort of, right, okay, I'm not sure I'm going to look into this. Yeah. So, but I mean, I'm just, because I used to struggle with this, because I have dyslexia. I used to have trouble retaining information.
Okay.
So I found, and it was always short-term memory. I'd lose it if it was. So I found a quick way of getting information from out there straight into long-term memory, rather than sort of almost bypassing my short-term memory.
Wow.
And so I don't forget anything. So if something I see online, it usually triggers something. It's almost like you sort of, I just don't forget things. So all that information gets stored quite efficiently. Yeah.
So, I must say, I'm jealous of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good trick. I mean, tell the truth, it was university, because I had to find a way of learning. So it was when I went back to university quite late. I was in my late 20s when I went back, because I'd had such a hard time in school. So going back, I had to find a system of learning that was that suited me, and it just happened sort of quite naturally. I used to sing all my notes, and sort of put them into rhyme and stuff like that to remember things. And then just over time, it just was a natural sort of evolution, and it just managed to sort of just learn things very, very quickly, and retain them now. So it's quite a handy trick.
Sounds like,
and it's great it was always great for ritual as well, because if I was learning sort of ritual, I could just get the information there, put the book aside, and I was I could concentrate on what I had to do then, without actually thinking about reading anything or anything like that. So all my ritual was, my entire book of shadows was sort of just I memorized it all.
That's wow. So let's go back for unfamiliar people here. Give us a generalization, so to speak, of witchcraft.
A generalization,
right? Yeah, it's a basic. So people have a basic understanding of what it is.
Right. Okay. I mean, yeah. Okay. I'm going to go right back. So the etymology I'm going to sort of start with witchcraft. The word witch comes from, it's a really old Anglo-Saxon word, and it was split into two. Yeah. The Wicca and the Wiki. Wiki was a female term, Wicca male term,
Okay.
and Wiccan collective term. Yeah. So as sort of English, so actually when you see the word Wicca, Wicca, yeah, really the pronunciation of that should be Witcher. Yeah.
Ah.
See, and you see that pronunciation Witcher.
Uh-huh.
And eventually, as sort of English progressed, the language progressed. I mean, I'm going back to sort of King Alfred, the sort of 1066 time when this word was in use, this Witcher. Yeah. So that word, you lost the female and male, yeah, because English did that, and they had collective terms. So that Wicca became witch. So it was a word that was meant either male or female practitioner of witchcraft.
Okay.
Now, witchcraft was just meant the craft of the wise.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of them were folk healers, herbalists, midwives. So anything that sort of you could sort of, there was probably, you were included in that sort of medicines, a lot of psychology, a lot of sort of knowledge of the stars, planetary movements, the phases of the sun, the phases of the earth. So very sort of pagan-based stuff, really, you know. And then gradually you have this. So that was your sort of general term for witch, was someone who was very knowledgeable in healing, yeah, in any way, either spiritual healing or physical healing. And then when the sort of 1950s came along and they had the sort of witchcraft revival, then a lot of you still had the basic sort of healing structure of the witch, but what was added to it then was the sort of the ritual that came out of the sort of Western mystery traditions. So the things like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Quite
yeah.
familiar.
So sort of to actually formalize it and put it into more of a structure. That's what happened with Gerald Gardner, who was considered the father of modern day Wicca or witchcraft. Yeah, but obviously, like back when I sort of first got involved, I mean, Wicca and witch were sort of two terms for the same thing. Yeah, okay. And it's only, and I mean, I'm talking back to the early 80s, and pagan was probably, all witches were pagans, yeah, all Wiccans were pagans. So you had this group, and they were all sort of lumped together, really, at that time, because there wasn't sort of the spectrum that there is now. And gradually over time, the definitions, I mean, now Wicca, I mean, for me, Wicca was always the initiatory tradition. So you couldn't be a Wiccan without going through a formal initiation, of a line of descent. Okay. Yeah. But now, I mean, you look at the definitions of Wicca in America and in the UK to a certain amount now, and it's like a free for all.
Yeah, traditions be damned. I'm calling myself this.
And if your gran sort of used a cabbage leaf in a certain way, she was a Wiccan. I mean, just bizarre. Yeah. And the word sort of Wiccan and witch have sort of almost deviated as well and become their own things. Yeah. But to me, I mean, all initiated Wiccans are witches because they're initiated as a priest or priestess and witch. Yeah.
Okay.
But so I would say all Wiccans are witches, but not all witches are Wiccans. Yeah.
Understood. So there's a lineage of initiation that defines a Wiccan.
Yes, yeah. In my book, I mean, a lot of people
Yes.
will argue with that, but I mean, they call it traditional sort of British Wiccan. Yeah, but in my, because it was defined, that's how it was originally set up, that you would be initiated into what they called, it was termed the craft quite often. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and that was your descent, you know, and people get very proud about what lineage they came off as well, you know. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just deviated from that now. But I mean, in my books, it's still the initiatory line is what sort of defines a Wiccan for me.
And that has happened with so many of the, well, esoteric practices in general. I mean, a number of years back, my wife got interested in Reiki, and she
Yeah,
went to a master who taught her, and she passed level 1, level 2, level 3 was, if I remember correctly, a teacher. And now all this stuff is all over the internet, and
oh
this
yeah, yeah,
whole descendant from master stuff has gone away in so many things.
yeah, yeah. It's like this here. It's like Reiki practitioners are 10 a penny here now. They're everywhere, you know, and
Mhm.
no sort of formalized training. You know, you know, that's the thing with the Wiccan initiation. I mean, initiation, people say, oh no, it's wrong and stuff. But at least if you were initiated into a group of people who knew this stuff, you would get decent training.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's sort of almost guaranteed that you were going to get you know your building blocks. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter if you deviate from those building blocks later on, but if you've got sound building blocks, that's a good start. That's a good starting point, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, it's everything's becoming kind of wishy-washy, and I'm kind of baffled by the whole thing. I learned tarot a number of years ago, and I studied under a master for 18 months. And then she
Yep.
said, okay, go and grow. I'm like, well, I'm not done. You know, go and grow. You've got the basics, like you said, the building
Yeah.
blocks. Now
Yeah. That's it.
build on this
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't replicate how someone does something. You can take what they give you and you can
Mhm.
build on it and
Right.
find your own way, and that's it. But I would recommend to anyone that they have those building blocks, that they don't try and start from scratch. You know, look for someone who knows what they're talking about, who can actually teach you something, you know, to give you a grounding, you know. And I think that's it's like anything, you know. I mean, it's like you wouldn't expect a surgeon to read a book and then go and operate on someone.
Yeah.
You'd expect
Really.
them to have that training before they were
Hmm.
sort of let loose, to watch and learn and understand, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And whether you call it an art or a craft, and I seem to I look at these type of studies as a combination of an art and a craft.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but you know, geez, yeah, you can learn to finger paint on your own. But like you said, brain surgeon that just read 30 pages on Wikipedia, they're not getting me, man. No.
no, that's it. Yeah, and it's yeah. And that's it. I mean, people do trust themselves to people who just haven't had the training, you
Yes, it
know. And
happens.
sometimes, I mean, I mean, I've picked up the devastation 2 or 3 times of what people have done to other people because they haven't had the training and stuff, and the damage that they've done. I mean, certain psychological damage that they've done to people, you know. And it was part of our groups of sort of remit when we were on Anglesey, was to help people who had sort of suffered at the hands of someone who just didn't know what they were doing, really.
Yeah, and you know the a thing that in a lot of these type of groups that bothers me And in my younger days, I was guilty, but they're calling it, toxic positivity. Everything is wonderful. Everything is great. Bullshit.
Oh yeah. I really don't like.
And I was
Yeah.
that guy, and I luckily
Yeah.
I got past it. But
Yeah.
if you don't, I shared a meme today. If you don't love yourself, you can't love everyone else. No, sorry.
Hmm.
I'm not a
Yeah.
big fan of me, but I dearly love my wife.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain things I think. I mean, you can sort of say, "Oh yeah, anything goes," but there there might not be. There's wrong practices. There's things that are sort of wrong that you can do, and you can't just say, "Oh no, it's fine. Oh, this is what I want to do. This is what my heart tells me to do." Yeah, because there are wrong practices out there, and they can do you the damage to other people as well as the self.
Hmm.
And I think this sort of culture of, oh no, anything goes, we can do what we like, is to some extent bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's no one. I mean, and there's no one there to say, well, actually, this you could end up with this. I mean, I'll give you an example. There was one of the sort of Facebook groups, and someone had put a candle spell up the other day.
Okay.
And it was a candle spell with a cord in between, and as candles, and it was for severing the link. So as the candles burnt down, they burnt the cord connecting the two, and then the link was severed. Yeah, the idea behind it, the basic idea, fine, but there were certain things in it that you thought, right, well, the person who actually wrote this out hasn't thought this through. Yeah. Because first of all, they'd decided that a circle of salt around the candles would be a good idea. Now, a circle of salt is a circle is a container.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're actually trying to sever something, but you're actually putting the salt circle around it and containing it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
see it.
So the other, and the other thing was they had a black candle and white candle, and I said, well, you're using that. Which are you going to use for the bad karma, and which are you going to use? Because as soon as you use black for to represent something that's bad, that's going to set a precedent. So everything black has got to be bad. Yeah. And I said, no, you wrong. Use 2 white candles for a start. Take the salt away. But this is what I mean. I mean, if people are left to their own devices and someone is not correcting them and not sort of giving them advice on these things to do, people are going to make huge mistakes.
Yeah, I remember reading Israel Regardi, Golden Dawn, and
Yeah.
he suggested strongly that anyone entering into ritual magic go through years of psychological counseling first.
Yeah.
Clean your own house.
Definitely. I mean, we used to have, some people I know in the past have been refused initiation into sort of ritual groups because of the fact that they weren't up to it mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And they wouldn't have been, I mean, because it does have a psychological impact. You're sort of speeding up your karma, really. Yeah, you're looking at sort of things that if you're not ready to sort of dig up and deal with, it's going to put you into a spiral,
Yeah. So I was once told by a person that I respected that when you enter the role of teacher, you potentially take on the karma of the student, in that if you teach them beyond their ability to handle, the damage done by them is yours. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there is sort of an example, I knew someone who was initiated by or taken on by a group that were on Anglesey. They were on the other side of the island to us, but they were on Anglesey at the time, and they took on this woman who obviously had some sort of issues,
Okay.
The mental health problems, and she wasn't ready, and she wasn't. And the first ritual they had, she had a meltdown. She had a complete meltdown. And they took it as a one-off. Second ritual they had, complete meltdown again.
Oh, geez.
And this was what happened to her. She just couldn't handle the energy that was built within the circle, within the ritual circle and stuff. She just couldn't handle it. It just opened her up too wide, and she had so many issues to deal with that it wasn't, But as I said, this is one of the things that we used to do, is pick up sort of waifs and strays who'd had damage, but the people who actually took her on didn't take responsibility for her. Even if it isn't karma, even if it doesn't come down to karma, you still have a responsibility for that person, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, they did a ritual and cut the cord with this woman, and just let her, said, "Oh, that's it, don't come back." And myself and my partner at the time ended up picking up the pieces. But yeah, you have that sort of karmic sort of responsibility, but you have that humanist responsibility as well. You can't sort of set someone adrift. You can't sort of give them something or start them on a path and then cut them loose and say, "Oh no, I can't do that anymore." You do have a responsibility. And even now, I'm nearly 60, and my sort of initiator, my high priestess, is back down in Wales, and she's, what would she be now, 73? But sometimes she still treats me like a little a son. Yeah. Like that. She has this. Still feels that she has this responsibility for me, and that's how I felt about everyone that I sort of trained as well. Is that all right? Are they going to be all right? And it is a worry as well, and it's a big it's a massive responsibility as well. It's not something that should be taken lightly. That role of teacher, it's a massive responsibility.
It's and like going back to these days, I read a book, and so I write this stuff, and it's on the internet, and then people just read it, and somebody's going to have to go back one of these days and clean house on that person, or they're trashed.
Yeah, that's it. It's simple things though. I'm as I say, I'm like an encyclopedia, so I sort of pick things up. And one of the things today is, like, someone had posted a thing about Hecate and her association with Cerberus, the three-headed dog of Hades. Mm-hmm. And there isn't a connection between the two.
Yeah, I don't know of that one. No, I'm not nearly as well schooled as you, but that's two different mythologies.
Yeah, well, both sort of Greek, but they're miles apart. And Hecate does have, one of her things was that she was associated with dogs. And it was usually black dogs, and so she's portrayed with dogs. And then, in ancient times, they supposedly sacrificed dogs to her, yeah? But it wasn't Cerberus. That's it. But these mixed and tell the truth, you would only need to Google it and look for 2 seconds to find out that's it, that there isn't that connection there, And this is what I'm saying about asking questions. A lot of the time, people will say, "Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'll have that." And I've learned this as well. And you think, well, just go and have a look. If double check everything. Yeah, double check everything and ask questions. People don't seem to ask questions anymore. I was constantly asking questions and everything. Blessed in everything there is, you know. I mean, people say, oh, we call when we do a circle, we call the quarters. Yeah, why are you calling the quarters? What is their job? You know, we're doing this. We're using sage to. What are you using sage for? What about other incenses? Why? You know, there's lots of other things that people say. Oh yeah, I've got this one thing, and that's what I'm going to sort of cling to. When there's other things, sort of experiment and to look further. You were talking about being eclectic, and I think eclecticism is the best thing. Try things out, see if they work. You know, and if they don't work, chuck them away. Try something else. You know.
Uh-huh. You know,
You
I
know, there
am
was I think it was the old Gnostics. The old Gnostics used to the philosophy was you start off believing everything. Yeah. So you believe everything, and then bit by bit you separate the wheat from the chaff. So if something doesn't work, you get rid of it. You get rid of it. So rather than starting not believing anything and add into it, start off believing everything and then work backwards. And then you will end up with a sort of the core stuff that runs through everything, you know.
I am blessed now now almost 30 years to be living in the desert Southwest here, and there is a very large indigenous population. You know, many tribes. My wife and I had the honor of working with a bunch of the local tribes to stop a proposed nuclear waste dump in the middle of a sacred valley, a valley so sacred that the tribe's members would go into the valley for ceremony and leave. They felt it was wrong to stay. And I've seen ceremonies from that most people do not have an opportunity to see, but I've taken into my practices the desert sage here. It's just I love it, and but I've used other things. Sweetgrass is used here, also, and I love them both. But when I'm going to sit down to do something, I store them on my altar fairly close together, and I reach out, and one's going to say it's my turn.
Yeah.
And that's what I use that day.
Yeah, yeah. I have a tendency to use resins, tree resins, so frankincense, myrrh, you know, and sort of dragon's blood and stuff like that. I burn them on charcoals because that's how I was brought up. You know, that's what but that's a sort of more a sort of Western mystery style of doing things. You know, it sort of came out of the sort of incenses that were sort of from sort of ancient Greece and sort of Rome and stuff like that, you know, rather than sort of, But as I said, I mean, each culture will have something similar along the lines. You know, I've heard people say, oh, don't use sage, it's cultural appropriation and stuff like that. It isn't. You know, there's sainin in Scotland, which was another thing that used sort of juniper and all sorts of things. And right across the board, there's sacred smoke has been used for ritual. You know, right across. I don't think there's a culture that doesn't use it. You know,
no, I don't believe so.
And possibly the Australian Aborigines, because they were a bit weird. They never invented the drum either, which is a bit weird. But yeah,
I did not know that, and that is weird.
Yeah, yeah, But most cultures you'll find some sort of incense or sort of sacred smoke that people have used.
Now, I've used the resin incenses, but with my wonderful new lung condition, I cannot.
Yeah, I did read about that. Yeah, no. See, I still like enough smoke so you can't see the other side.
I understand that, and so did I, but I just can't do that right now.
Yeah.
I find the sage doesn't bother me quite so much.
No,
I keep it down a little bit.
Yeah. In fact, coltsfoot would probably help as well, burning coltsfoot.
I'm not familiar.
Occult for I'll have to look it up for you. It's probably got a different name over there.
Okay.
It's quite a common herb over here, but it was used years and years ago. The smoke was used to sort of ease chest conditions.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll look it up anyway, and I'll find the Latin name. You might sort of find it. It might have a different name over.
Well, as an avid gardener, yes, the Latin name would be the best thing for me to use, because we go out and we talk about our plants, and generally speaking, my wife and I are using the Latin so we don't confuse each other or anybody else we happen to talk to.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. But yeah. There's lots of herbs. Yeah, I tell you that I'm terrible for memorizing the Latin names. So I mean, most of them are flowers and you sort of herbs that I sort of pick when I'm out and about foraging.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of, and they've all got sort of, and if I don't know the name of it, I'll just make one up.
But the only thing we have in an indigenous herb here is creosote.
All right, okay.
And that's some strong stuff. And I mean, and it's everywhere. But in a desert, we don't have a lot of.
No. I could go outside and probably in the summer and pick about 50 different herbs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that, and that's not including the sort of the mushrooms and sort of leaves off the trees and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's it's a rare. I grew up back east where there's much more in the way of available flora, but here, I mean, it's different. And I'll see 120 plus Fahrenheit in the summer, easy.
Oh,
I know.
No thanks. I'm a real cold weather person. Yeah, I like the cold. I don't. If it gets too hot, I mean, it can get too hot in Scotland for me.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah, we consider cold. I mean, anything below 70 Fahrenheit is actually cold to me these days.
Oh no, that's warm. That's warm for me. I'd be walking around in a t-shirt in that.
Yeah, but I mean, our range is like, maybe as low as 45, and I've seen unofficially 130.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's monstrous.
Well, and they do not announce our actual temperatures on any of the weather forecasts because, well, I'm 100 miles from Las Vegas, and there's a small casino town here. You start telling people it's 118 out, and the tourist business is gone.
Right, yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
They sugarcoat the hell out of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just funny.
Yeah.
But I see the desert was different.
Sorry, go on.
I could feel the energies back when I lived in the Midwest because everything was so alive. I got here and everything is so quiet, so subtle. It's there, but if you do not look for it, really look for it, you'll not find it.
Yeah. So I've got, I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the posts that I've put up about my ancestry.
Yes, a little.
Yeah. Well, my ancestry, my line of descent goes back sort of like 2,000 years. I could nearly track it here.
Oh my!
Into Wales. So I mean, we're talking sort of post and pre-Roman times. The Welsh were very good at doing it. See, you have this the way of remembering things. So you have, like, my name's Robin Ap Clericus, yeah?
Yes.
So you would have, then the Clericus would be Ap, James, Ap, yeah? So every Ap is a son of, like the Scottish Mac.
Okay.
Yeah? So you have these lines of descent, and they were sort of just written out. So my name would be about 50 names long if I wrote it out.
Oi.
going back. Yeah, going back. So it'd be the son of, daughter of, son of, right back until, and eventually we get in from, mine sort of goes out of history and into mythology. And I'm descended from the Welsh goddess Dawn and her husband Bellymawr, who was the sun god. Yeah. So it's
Wow.
like this. Yeah. So I mean, my connection with I always used to joke when I was younger that and people would say, oh, like Britain. I said, well, I used to say, well, it's mine, and they used to say, well, I said, no, it's my island. It's mine. It belongs to me. Yeah. And although it was sort of tongue in cheek, and I was joking to a certain extent, my ancestry is that sort of ancient here that it does feel like that, that the land does belong to me.
Wow. That's I don't have a connection with place like anything like that. I've been a bit of um I've traveled. The most I've lived in any one
Yeah.
place has been since I met Juanita. She settled
Right.
my
Okay.
ass right down.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. See, my family haven't moved. My family, they come from the Kingdom of Powys, and which was mid Wales. Yeah. And for like 1,000 years, they hadn't moved anywhere. And there was a few of them had sort of gone off and sort of married into sort of the kings of Strathclyde, which is Lower Scotland. Some of them were sort of the kings of the Isle of Man. Some of them had sort of come over from Ireland, but the main core of them are in this one area in mid Wales, which was the Kingdom of Powys. And they hadn't moved for like over 1,000 years. So my ancestry was so easy to trace because it's like this sort of unbroken line that sort of goes back, and I can go and stand on a 9-inch hill fort or a medieval castle and know that that's where one of my ancestors lived.
It's got to be wonderful.
So it's, I mean, to me, it's a different thing. And I don't think, I'd never actually wanted to travel. I never felt the need to travel because I thought I always had this feeling that there's enough here for me. There was enough here for me to look into, to sort of look into the sort of mysteries of the land I actually live on, rather than sort of trying going out to India or ever to find myself. I never understood why people were going out to do the trek to India or to the east to find themselves.
I would have not left the area I grew up in had I not take a quick jaunt back to the pre-internet days when they had bulletin board systems.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So yeah. I'm in Ohio and I'm jaunting around and I ended up in this BBS called Rippers in this place called Bullhead City, which I knew for a fact was in the middle of the desert. So I'm sitting in, the common chat room one day, and this woman comes in and is looking for people to help her with a tree planting project. And I'm sitting in Ohio going, this lady's nuts. Anybody knows don't shit grow in the desert. This lady is my wife.
Yeah.
And we are avid desert gardeners. We've got another 7 trees waiting for spring to put them in the ground.
Wonderful.
But that's my chickens, my gardens, and my wife, and this radio station. That's my life. I almost never leave the house.
No, that's good. That's good.
I love it.
If you're that content, that's wonderful, isn't it?
It is. It's great.
I think there's so many people sort of searching.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get that kind of contentment, that is just brilliant.
I found a lot of me in her, and after what has it been 26-ish, maybe a little more years. I don't want to go anywhere. Yeah. I just want to be here, and I'll probably, as my health goes, I'll probably die here in a few years, and I'm fine with that. That's not an issue to me. And that freaks a lot of people out. I'm at peace with me and the universe, and
Yeah,
So be
I
it.
don't know why. Yeah, I see. I don't know why that, that death does freak people out, and
It does.
and I do think it's a Christian thing. I do
Oh,
think
I
it's
definitely believe
a
that.
very, very sort of Christian thing, because my family, they have no respect for death at all. They'll joke about it all the time. I mean, we used to. I mean, at one of my family, if we have to go to a funeral, we all end up in the pub, and it's a celebration,
Right.
and none of us. There's no maudlinness. There's no sort of mourning like that.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone. I mean, people grieve, but they grieve. They're
Yes.
left to grieve in their own way,
Mm-hmm.
But there's none of this sort of forced, um, forced grief.
Yeah.
It's and I find it really sort of sad that people are sort of have this fear. They have this fear of death, and it's just part of the cycle,
Yeah. And here's the and it's and okay, I kind of take some joy in Christian bashing, even though I know I shouldn't. But
don't we all?
but if you are comfortable in your faith as a Christian, you should have no fear of death.
But it's the fear of hell that's been thrown
Yeah, but I
But
suppose
if
that's
they've been
it.
if they've been a good Christian, they shouldn't have the fear of hell. But
Exactly that.
But they do because they know that it's a unrealistic goal to aim for. To be that perfect. You can't go through your life without hurting people.
No, you can't. It's not possible.
No, it's not. I mean, people say that the one sort of pagan thing you hear about is "and it harm not, and none do what you will." Yeah,
Yeah.
and that I mean, if you really sort of analyze that, that is one of the hardest. If you include yourself as well,
Exactly that. That's the one
that
part
is
that's
one of the
missed on that.
hardest things you can possibly live up to. I mean, people bandy it around, and you're thinking, that is something. That is something to actually achieve in your life. You'd have to be. Well, you couldn't do it.
No,
I mean, you can't do it. I mean, it's.
I see it as an unattainable goal to strive for.
Yeah.
Do your best.
Yeah. Well, there's another thing that I've always lived by. It's part of the charge of the goddess.
Okay.
It was something that Doreen Valiente wrote, or adapted, I should say, rather than wrote. And there was one piece of it that says, keep pure your highest ideals and ever strive towards them. And that is what I take, is what I use. Keep my ideals pure and strive towards them. Nothing about sort of perfection, because perfection you can never be reached.
No.
You can't go through life where you can't make omelets without cracking eggs, as they say.
Right. And if you got, I mean, I have a friend who is a devout Buddhist. And before she gets out of bed, and this is an amazing thing to me still, she asks for forgiveness for any insects or anything she might accidentally step on.
Yeah, all right. I mean, I've come across people like this, who sort of, but it's mad. I did a good degree in environmental biology. Yeah, so it was sort of use things like the human body as an environment for growth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, Buddhist people are on about taking. I know there's Buddhist sects who brush before them so they don't stand on any insects.
Yeah.
You go in the shower. How much life are you killing? How much bacteria? How much? You wash your hair.
I never thought it that far.
How much life are you destroying by actually cleaning yourself, cleaning your teeth?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, if you're talking about life having an essential right, you have to take on board all life. Yeah, to me, you can't sort of say, all right, I'm stopping at insects. Anything below insects doesn't count. Yeah,
Oh,
to me,
wow.
all life matters. Yeah, so you've got it. So plants, animals, they all matter equally to me. Yeah, so you can't, if you take it to its actual conclusion, you can't. Wouldn't be able to move. You wouldn't be able to wash yourself.
Yeah.
you
Hard enough
without
time
actually
breathing,
destroying
I mean,
life.
all of this.
Yeah. So you wouldn't. Where does it stop? Where does it stop? I understand the point that they're trying to make, but to me, you have to sort of take it to its to its conclusion, and the conclusion is that you can't. It's an impossibility not to sort of take a life. Not to, you can apologize. I like the idea of waking up in the morning and apologizing to the universe for taking taking any life, but
Well, it's hard to eat without
yeah,
taking a life of something,
yeah, exactly.
even if you're, pure vegan.
Yeah. Well, it's still, you've still got to have something that's been alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people go on about corn. Corn, it's mycelium. It's fungal mycelium. It was alive.
Yeah.
And it's and fungus are probably closer related to humans than they are to plants.
Oh, fungi.
So and they're
it just amazes me.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's all sorts of, eating a mushroom, there's, even just eating fruiting bodies. All right. You could say, all right, but they don't kill the plant. But what bacteria are on that fruiting body?
Mm-hmm.
That fruiting body would have fallen to the ground and nurtured so many more bacteria when it hit the soil.
Yeah.
so if you think about it, like you everything that you do has a kick-on effect, whether it's positive or negative.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's been a bit eye-opening, guys. I never went that far. And now I'm glad and it's something for me to spend some time pondering a little later, even though it does seem like basically it's a simple concept. Everything is alive, and everything alive needs to consume something that is also alive.
Yeah. I mean, look at it. Yeah. I mean, our bodies, I mean, they it's the bacteria and the sort of, they get us in the end as well. We end up nurturing life, and it's just that big cycle. Yeah. It's a cycle.
Yeah. Thank you for that little eye opener there, man. But and I've become, my wife more so is becoming a bit of a student of mycology and some of the new. I mean, scientists are saying that fungus is a communication line between, amongst other things, trees.
Yeah. The association. Well, even with some basic plants as well. You need, even down to actually the breakdown of the symbiotic relationship to say you've got a walnut. Yeah, a walnut falls from the tree. Yeah, and it's got that hard casing.
Right.
That hard casing's got to be broken down, and it can only be broken down by bacteria. So without the bacteria and the fungi to break down that shell, you're not going to get a new walnut tree. Because it needs to be broken open. So it's like these. I think these symbiotic relationships are ignored. I think biologists have a tendency. I mean, my experience at uni as well was the same thing. That biologists have a tendency to look at things under a microscope, and they don't step back and look at things holistically, and how things work together.
Right.
Because mainly their concerns are usually with the sort of function of the individual organism, and sort of that ecological sort of. I think it's getting different now because people are looking at. But I think that holistic viewpoint and that sort of interaction between sort of life, I mean what sort of fungus how fungus are helping, helping the trees. They go on about oak trees hollowing out, hollow oak trees.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it was, the fungus that sort of eat away at the core. Yeah. But that's actually not a bad thing, because as the oak tree grows in size, it's more vulnerable to the wind. But a solid lump of wood isn't as flexible as a hollow.
Right.
So if you have this movement, yeah, and this is why they sort of built skyscrapers where they had the support structure on the outside, because it gives it the leeway, gives it the swing, so it can bend in the wind. And that they reckon that's a process. That's why oak trees are long-lived, and that's why they hollow out, because it actually stops them. And lots of trees do it, obviously, but it's to actually give them a bit more flexibility. And if it wasn't for the relationship they have with the fungus, it wouldn't happen, So, but simple things like this, that sort of interaction, I think is needs to be looked at more.
One of my favorites is some conifers, particularly the giant sequoias that we have here north of me. The seeds require fire.
Yeah.
And wow.
Yeah.
No fire, no forest fire, no more trees.
Yeah, that's it. And and it makes sense as well, because once the fire's gone past, it also clears the undergrowth for that new growth as well. So it's all fantastically sort of worked out. It's almost like there was a plan.
Almost. Yeah, this is. I'm having such a good time. So, what else would you like to talk about?
I don't know. Don't know.
All right. Well, because
brain's gone dumb.
I get there, and fairly shortly I'm going to have to, put the microphone away and go and get some oxygen to get me through the next few hours of the day.
Yeah.
And
how much oxygen are you on at the moment?
I'm on 5 liters a minute.
Right. Okay. So is it COPD that you've got?
No, I have idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis.
Oh, right. Okay.
And, I can have a lung transplant, but other than that, it's going to kill me.
Yeah. I didn't read all of it. I did see that you were having trouble with your lungs, but I didn't read it.
Yeah, well, it's, I wish I hadn't written most of it, because most people are like, oh my God, you're going to die. Oh my God, you're going to die. Aren't you afraid? I'm like, no. Well, why not? I'm like, look what I've got here. I got years of warning.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. That's fine. I had bowel cancer 5 years ago, and that was it had sort of stage 3, like, so it just before they managed to catch it just before it metastasized. But it had still sort of gone through the bowel wall into my lymph nodes. Luckily, they caught it in time, and the chemo did it. But people were sort of almost frightened to talk to me.
Yeah.
Because oh right, you could die. It was
yeah.
But it doesn't change me as a person.
No. And you can,
and some people
the street and get hit by a truck.
Yeah, some people just didn't actually talk to me all the time. I was going through sort of operations and chemo. There's some people didn't actually say one word to me because it scared them that much. And it's their own mortality that they're scared of.
That's exactly right. I was just going to say that.
Yeah, but
they're not afraid for you. They're afraid for, I could have to face this one day. Look, man, I don't care who you are. Like I said, unless you get hit by a truck, you're going to have to face something like this one day.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it comes to us all.
Yeah.
I've had how many this year? So far, 4 funerals I've been to this year so far. But
I am.
that comes with age as well. That's the other thing.
Yes, it does. I'll be 63 come April, 64 come April. And I'm watching my mother of 85 with, they don't know if it's Alzheimer's or dementia.
Oh,
And
that's
and she's 2,000 miles from me.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, I was up in Scotland. My mum had she suffered with dementia for 8 years, before she died. And that is one of the things. It's painful to watch, and
Yes.
it makes you feel guilty if you don't visit. But as it sort of gets to the later stages, there's almost no point in visiting.
Yeah.
Because of so, but it's a funny thing, because it's like a very slow death.
Yeah.
Really. My mum was 90 when she died, but it's a long time ago now. I mean, I was youngest of 7. So, my mum and dad were sort of in the sort of 45 when I sort of turned up. So, I mean, it was, it's going back quite a few years now that they both passed. But dementia, I mean, my dad went quite quickly. He'd sort of had a stroke and then pneumonia got him.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
And that sort of, so it was quite quick for him, but my mum, it was sort of, and she was so, I mean, she read, she was so quick. Her mind was so quick, and she would read, and she was, she was a nosy Parker. She wanted to know everyone's business. But, and her brain was, I was talking about my memory, and she was like, you could tell her a phone number. If you had a new phone number, you could tell her once, and she'd remember it. It was that, and to slowly see this person degrading, where she couldn't read anymore, she couldn't listen to the radio, and it just, just slowly sort of, this person just fades away,
Yeah, well, I'm gonna take a half a minute and pitch a bitch about insurance companies. I would dearly love to go see my mother, but at this point, my insurance company does not see fit to provide me with a portable concentrator.
Oh.
I can't travel.
Yeah, that's a bit mean.
It is.
Yeah.
A group of friends, and thank you, Jennifer and Molly and Rick, have started a little GoFundMe for me to try and get me one. But most of my friends and most of the people I know, like me, are not people of means. So we're working on this thing, but and I'd like to see her while she still has some of herself left.
Oh,
but,
definitely. I'll go and see her while she is still there. I mean, it's the funniest thing. I remember sort of talking to my mum when she was still there, and you sort of watching, and then all of a sudden it was as if her soul just went. And then sort of a couple of minutes later it'd come back. It was very, very strange experience. But I'd say go and see her before. I mean, but by the end, my mum, she recognized me as family, but she hadn't a clue who I was, in relation to her, But it's such a sad thing.
It is. Well, my friend, I'm going to have to wrap this up here a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Thank you so very much.
I could do with a cup of tea anyway.
Yeah, I'd love to do this again one day.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, anytime.
All righty, man. I'm going to check out, and I will talk to you soon and see you on Facebook.
Okay. All right. Cheers then. Bye for now.